Welcome to the Liquidity Event, a show about all things personal finance with a laser focus on taxes, financial independence, and equity compensation. Hosted by AJ and Shane of Brooklyn FI, each episode will focus on a personal finance topic, some driven by news headlines and sometimes driven by listener questions. And sometimes you'll just get two money nerds rambling about what they think is interesting. Just a quick note before we get started, this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered tax or investment advice.
Hello, and welcome to the Liquidity Event. We're your host, Shane Mason.
And AJ Ayers.
And this is episode 134, count 'em, being recorded on February 4th, 2025, airing February 7th. Quick reminder for you listeners, we will be answering your questions on the pod if you leave us a message. Otherwise, we'll pull it off a stranger on Reddit. You can disguise your voice and use a fake name if you're shy. The link is memo.com. Memo.fm/the liquidity events. I always goof that. Why is that written in natural language? I should stop. That's it. We're changing this forever. AJ, how are you doing? You would think after 134 episodes,
yep, you'd get
I
it right.
would
That's
be good
okay.
at something, but I haven't hit my 10,000 hours yet, AJ.
Of podcasting, yeah.
Yeah. Every white guy has to hit 10,000 hours of podcasting if he wants to go to heaven. If he wants to go to white guy heaven.
May you podcast 10,000 hours before the devil knows you're dead or whatever.
Oh, nice.
What's that lyric? Or is that a lyric or an actual Bible?
Well, I'm assuming it's not how it actually goes since you've never gotten an idiom right once in your life.
No, but that actually did. I got it so right that I changed it.
Perhaps, yes. You created a new one.
May you be in heaven 5 minutes before the devil knows you're dead, right? That's anyway.
Oh, yeah.
You never heard that?
I just know Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. I think that's the name of a movie. So my entire knowledge base is through the lens of Hollywood. So where are you, AJ? Where does the...
I am not in Hollywood. I am in Brooklyn, New York.
Good thing you're not in Hollywood. I don't know if we've talked about the fires very much. Any updates from you on friends and family out west?
No updates. I'm not in LA, but my husband was in LA. Just got back yesterday. And he said the city is reeling, but okay. And everyone's going to rebuild. Fortunate enough that none of my family was directly impacted. So that's good. But yes, I do have friends who have lost homes. So speaking of fires, I see you have a fire extinguisher in your background.
Oh, do I?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, one of the first things they teach you in sailor school is all about fire safety.
Fire safety.
Yeah. And it's really not hard to get fire extinguishers. They're like $50 a piece. I was just in my house here in Mexico City, and it's like, it's a set. I'm on the top floor. If there was a fire here, I would be super fucked. So I bought some fire extinguishers just in case. Also, if you get drunk enough, great party trick. I'm sorry, you don't have to be drunk. It's still fun. So that answers where I am in the world. I missed last week. I was in Charlotte for a conference, the ICPA's Personal Financial Planning Summit, just 100 firm owners getting together to razzle-dazzle each other. It was nice to get to Charlotte. Charlotte's a beautiful city.
I've never been.
Didn't realize that.
You know, I was sort of hoping. I lost a bet recently, and someone was going to send me to a random city. And
you would have loved Charlotte
instead of sending me to like a cool city, Charlotte, which is where I wanted to go, which I had hinted at many times. I was sent to Bumble, whatever, Mississippi.
Actually, the name of the hometown where I grew up is South Haven, Mississippi. So there's no Bumble in the title. You wish. But yes, it is effectively Bumblefuck, Mississippi. Yes. So, all right, cool. How was your episode with John?
It was terrible. No, I'm just kidding. No, it was great. It was a fantastic episode. I love John as a co-host.
Hell yeah, he's a fantastic co-host. We're excited to announce we're going to have some new types of content on Liquidity Event in the future. Speaking of co-hosts, we're going to bring in some experts in the equity compensation space. We just got a confirmation on a qualified small business stock attorney that I've worked with and AJ has worked with on some very fantastic use cases. He's going to add a lot of value to our listeners. We're going to do some more evergreen content similar to the stuff we did on RSUs in the past. So really excited for that. This week's episode
QSBS, it's tax time, folks. Like, QSBS is a word to know if you have at any point held company stock. It's an incredible carve out for folks who have made investments in startups. If you hold your stock for 5 years, you get to exclude $10 million of gain. There's a ton of rules, which is why we're going to interview one of the country's experts on QSBS on this podcast. But just a good thing to know, like, hey, have I held this stock for 5 years? Let me just do a little research to figure out if I might qualify for QSBS.
Hell yeah. Yeah, it's going to be great. Great content. A lot of fun stories about the IRS allowing and disallowing different types of companies to qualify for that exclusion. But
my brain just worked really hard to remember if it was 5 years or 10 years, 10 years, 5 years, 5 million, 10 years. Anyway, I think I got it right.
Even us, ladies and gentlemen, dear listener, we have to revisit Section 1202 and read the regulations, of which there are not that many. But on this week's episode of the Liquidity Event, we do have some fun stuff around baby boomer women deciding the fate of trillions of dollars via the great wealth transfer over the next 20, 30 years. TLDR, women live a lot longer than men. And then we have some cool stuff about humanoid robots and how they're going to impact our near future, where it was coming down the pipeline in that space. We have some AI and energy consumption videos. We are shooting a video on this topic. We're going to talk about Trump's tariffs, some very topical stuff on what's going on with the Canadian, Mexican, and Chinese tariffs update. And we're going to get into some Reddit questions around real estate and diversification, and then tech stocks as well. All right. Let's hop in. Our first article is about women, baby boomers, from the Wall Street Journal, and how they are going to be deciding the fate of trillions of dollars. Apparently, the great wealth transfer, not apparently, we know this quite well, but the size of the great wealth transfer is looking at $82 trillion as baby boomers such as AJ and I's parents bite the dust and pass on their wealth. AJ, what are your thoughts on the article? Give us an introduction to the article, where we're going.
Sure. Actually, I'm going to do a little plug for Substack quickly. So last Friday, I actually did a presentation on this, on the Great Wealth Transfer, and which is where this article came up. So if you want to know a lot more about this, we'll include a link in the show notes. It's me and my dear friend Lindsay talking about what this means for women when this big wealth transfer is going to happen. First of all, how great is this transfer, right? This article quotes 82 trillion. I've seen as high as 120 trillion. So a lot of trillions of dollars at stake here. And basically what we're saying is, men are going to die first, right? So the men are going to die. They're going to transfer their wealth to their spouses, usually women, statistically. And then those women are going to die. And guess who's going to inherit? The next generation. So there's a lot of money that's going to be moving. We've already started to see it, right, Shane, amongst our clients, amongst my friends. And the thesis here is, for the baby boomer generation, typically, it was the man who was involved in finances. The man was doing the investing. The man was likely meeting with the financial advisor. Perhaps the woman was not even involved in that relationship. Maybe she never came to the meetings. Maybe she doesn't even know where the money is, never looked at a statement. So when that man leaves the picture by dying, she is now in charge of the estate. She's in charge of the money. She's going to have to take over the control and the investment of those funds. And what's that going to look like? I think I always find this funny, you and I go to a lot of industry conferences, and it's always like, how to market your firm, or, here's this trend. And it's always like, women, like we need a women's initiative. And it's like, we're not a minority. We're literally half the population, but financial advisors are going to have to change how they're talking to people, because it's typically been this man-to-man relationship. So what is going to need to change in how customers are spoken to? We're going to have to use different language. And that's kind of what the article gets into. I thought there wasn't like a ton of meat on this bone of this article, but if you're a financial advisor, make sure both of the people are in the room is my best advice. Like if you are a person who's in a relationship and you know that your spouse has a financial advisor, you need to know that person. Do not silo yourself out of the picture, because you're going to lose out. And it's very confusing and devastating when you lose your spouse, and then you're also confused because you don't know if you can make the mortgage payment because you don't know where the money is. So make sure that you're an active participant in those relationships.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think an interesting thing, just a funny thing you mentioned about women not being a minority and making up 50% of the population. That's true probably the first 65 years of life. And then women eat up more and more of the pie of, because just men just die. Yeah. They die first.
Exhibit A at the top of this episode, you were telling us about how fire extinguishers should be used for fun in a party environment, which is Exhibit A of why men die sooner, because they're too dumb shit.
But listen, who has more fun in the years that they have on this earth?
I don't know.
What are we even here for? To live forever, bro? So men die first, not the only thing they typically do first. And then so like as they get older, as the population gets older and older, no reaction from AJ on that one, dear listener, it's mostly women, and they're going to be making the decisions. Honestly, there's not a ton of meat on this bone. It's actually often when I read articles like this, it just gives me more questions about some of the stats that they provide. Like some of the stats they mention is that women tend to give more to charity than men do. which I find interesting. It's like, I wonder if they do that before their husband has died. Right.
See, I don't think so. I think I had the exact same thought, which is like, yes, more women give to charity because their husbands died. They're old. Their kids are taken care of. They know how much money there is. And they come to their own conclusion, or a financial advisor says, you have so much money. You have more money than you'll ever need. It's time to do something with it. Why don't you give it away to charity? That's a great tax play. It's going to get taxed if you pass it on. So why don't you give it away? It's I don't know what the word is in statistics, but the sample size is skewed because it's only women who are left alive.
Yeah. I mean, if your kids are grown, husband's dead. I mean, the traditional male, masculine mindset is to provide for the household, especially for the older generations, right? And then, the husband's probably just making sure. I mean, my dad died, 13 years ago now, and left money to my mom. And his main concern was making sure that she had enough to get there on, so to speak. This is just like an interesting thought or a question that I have about that. And then, that's it. The next item that we have here is on humanoid robots. I got to be honest with you, AJ. This is your article. This is a Forbes article on humanoid robots. As a recent Roomba acquirer, I don't have much hope for having a humanoid robot in my house. I am excited about have you heard about this movie Companion, the horror movie?
Yes,
I don't think
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sex robot. I love to read about horror movies. I just can't watch them. I read all the plots of horror movies. I'm very interested in them, but I just can't watch them because it would ruin my life.
My horror friends, my terror aficionados have told me that this is a must watch. It's got 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Apparently a guy has a sex bot and then it becomes self-aware and kind of like reprograms itself to take revenge on the sex bot. Anyway,
when we're talking about robots, I think it's important to go back to robot history and what we know about robots, we mostly know from science fiction, right? Because we haven't had them for that long. So the collective understanding of what robots are and can do comes from fiction, right? And I want to go back to Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. I think these are always helpful to remember when we're talking about AI and robots. So first law of robotics, a robot cannot harm a human or allow a human to come to harm. Second law, a robot must obey human orders unless those orders conflict with the first law, meaning you can't order a robot to kill someone.
Right.
Third law, a robot must protect itself unless that protection conflicts with the first or second law. So protect yourself, except do not protect yourself unless a human will die. So as long as we follow those 3 laws of robotics, we're good. So bring on the bots.
Right. Yes, because robots would never, as we've seen with ChatGPT, they've never go off script and reveal.
So this article is basically saying that this company Figure is going to manufacture, is it 10,000 or 100,000 robots? Whatever
they're trying to ship 100,000 robots in the next 4 years.
And these robots
I have to ship my Roomba back to its charging station every day. Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. And what kind of jobs are they going to do? They're going to do manufacturing. They're going to do logistics. They're going to do retail. So they are taking jobs away from humans. So I would argue that they are violating the first law of robotics because you are harming a human by taking away its job. But anyway, I have a funny story about robots and retail. I was at my favorite restaurant, Del Taco, recently, and was in line waiting to pick up my food order. And Del Taco is experimenting with automation and robots, and they've taken away their cashiers. So there's a screen. You walk up to the screen and you type in what you want. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this ordering process. You say you want this, you charge your credit card, don't have to interact with the human at all. Menu's pretty straightforward. And there was a young gentleman who refused to interact with the machine. And he was standing there going, I don't want to use a robot. I want to talk to a human. And was backing up the entire line. There were about 10 people.
Wait. This is in New York City?
This was in Palm Springs, California. And yes, this person did have a Southern accent. I was not embellishing that.
Just making sure we're not using Southern accents for all idiots on the pod.
This was I am relating the story as truthfully as I can. It was crazy. It was very crazy. Anyway, this person is going on and on and on about how he wants a human to interact with.
Go ahead, do the Southern accent. Yeah.
I'm not using a stupid screen. I want to talk to a human. And he was young. That was what was most surprising to me and my friend.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, backs up the whole line. Everyone's like, what's going on? And so finally this poor person who was working at the Del Taco, who's trying to do the job and make the food and talk to the people in the drive-through line, this is inside the Del Taco, comes out and asks him politely what he wants, and then proceeds to press the buttons for him because that is the ordering system. And he's like, well, if I just knew you were going to press the buttons on the screen, I would have done it myself. And it was just this like awful kind of gross, reaction against using robots or technology to do jobs that people are traditionally used to humans doing. Yeah.
And then he drove away in his car instead of riding his horse back to his house, I'm assuming.
Yeah. He gets about 1,500 steps a day. So anyway.
Good on you on going to Del Taco.
I think that, I mean, look, if there's going to be 100,000 robots, those 100,000 robots are going to break. So we're going to need technicians to fix the robots. Like, I don't know. This sort of seems like a vicious cycle of let's create new technology. It's going to solve some problems, but create new problems. So I'm excited about robots. I welcome the robots.
I, for one, welcome my new robot overlords. Yes. Speaking
as someone who is messy, I'm not dirty. I'm just messy. I like leave things. Like if I could have a robot that could pick up all of the cups that I leave behind in my house, my marriage would be infinitely stronger.
I didn't think that was you. I thought someone broke in and took all the cups out.
Oh no, that's called reverse robbery, where someone comes into your house and leaves a bunch of stuff instead of taking it. That's what I get accused of on a daily basis.
Yes, dear listener, AJ's husband has a term for her messiness. He calls it reverse robbery.
This is not the
Somebody
first time.
broke in here and opened up all of the cabinets and left
Not
the
as good
cups
as
everywhere.
my
but
father.
Didn't take them.
My father used to call me General Sherman because I would leave a trail of destruction throughout every room that I walked in the house.
Nice.
So, anyway, speaking of General Sherman, we have a trade war brewing.
Thanks for the transition, co-host. Yes, of course, we're in the midst of Trump's Project 2025 agenda. Oh, I mean, his not Project 2025 agenda, or I don't know what's going on. Elon Musk has just hijacked the Treasury Department and is stopping all payments. Are we in a coup, AJ, or is the government currently being...
I mean, the government's being gutted, right? That's what's scary. Is that
feel free to, apply for your visa application to Mexico, where the wall's going up. I don't know if they're going to let people back over the wall in the future.
Oh, this is the last time I'm going to see you? Nice knowing you.
No, there is on the Mexico City subreddits. There is a let's trade every gringo in Condesa, which is where I live, dear listener, for whoever that gets deported. There's no doubt about it. I am an immigrant. Yeah. It is an interesting way to live your life. It is curious. Anyway, what we're going to talk about today is just the tariffs in general. I think we have two different sides of the argument today. AJ, I believe you're going to discuss the negative aspects of the tariffs, and I'm actually going to try to steelman the argument for the tariffs today. So why don't you lead us off?
No, go ahead. Why don't you argue both sides?
Oh, no. Our dear listener does not want to hear my voice for that long.
Well, first of all, I want to start by saying everything I learned about trade wars, I learned from Star Wars Episode 1. The Viceroy of the Trade Federation goes like, as you know, a blockade is perfectly legal. You know that guy I'm talking about? What was his name?
Yeah, he's got the super alien face.
I'm the Viceroy of the Trade Federation, blah, blah. Anyway.
I love democracy. That's that's
something else. So basically, to catch everybody up, what was it? Over the weekend, Trump said he's going to levy tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. Those went into effect at midnight, so they've been in effect for about
China
12 hours.
China is in effect. The Mexico one, actually, that's going to be part of my argument.
Right?
Was delayed a month. Yeah.
Okay. So negative things that are going to happen. Prices are going to go up. Right. It's going to be more expensive to import goods.
Inflation.
What's that?
Yeah. There will be inflated prices. To your point, will be inflation related to these tariffs.
Right. See, I knew you wanted to do both sides of the argument.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah. Inflation.
Yeah.
It seems unnecessary. It seems like a lot of bloviating. I have a feeling that this is a lot of Trump wanted to make good on his campaign promise, and I have a feeling we're going to end up kind of back where we were in November after all this is played out.
Back in November? Mm-hmm. Oh, what do you mean?
I just mean that I don't think these are actually going to go into effect. I think that I think this is just, he had to say something. We're going to wait for the reaction. The economy is going to react. And I would say by the end of this summer, we're just going to be back where we were in November with no tariffs.
Yeah, not all promises are kept, right?
Yeah.
Well, one crazy promise that was kept was he released I'm not sure if you guys covered this, but was he pardoned not only the January 6th people, a lot of which have been rearrested, by the way, in the meantime.
Child pornography, etc.
And murder and DUI and all kinds of stuff. One person was awaiting trial while they were in jail and is back in jail for 11 years for something that happened prior to Jan 6th. That's a crazy thing that we're not talking about enough. We're constantly distracted by the current coup that's going on. But he also did you watch the Silk Road documentary about the guy that created the Silk Road? And
the
Russ Albrecht, I think his name is.
The precursor to like crypto, like the Silk Road.
The original dark web guy that created the place where
marketplace to buy drugs and people on.
Yeah, there was billions of dollars of heroin and like drug trafficking, and then
human trafficking, right? That was the
human
big thing.
trafficking. Yeah, and he a lot of people why would you go to jail for that? He just created a website like Section 230, just like Facebook. Well, he did actually when he found out that he was going to go to jail, he hired someone to assassinate the person that was going to testify against him, and that was all recorded. So that's what he went to prison for. So we have a literal assassin, like a guy that hired an assassin that was pardoned. That was a promise that he made to the deep web sect of people, all young men, I'm sure, in the crypto space that ended up voting for him. So anyway, promises and I'm going to try to steelman this argument, just why are we going to use tariffs? What is the positive aspect of this? I find it kind of funny that tariffs are taxes. And he is raising taxes, Donald Trump and the Conservative Party. But it is kind of a conservative hybrid. I mean, we do have a between the Democratic Party and the Conservative Party in that we do need to balance the budget on the conservative side, but we usually do that by tax increases instead of growing the economy on the conservative side.
Wait, sorry, I just got a breaking news update after I just made this prediction that the tariffs, we're going to pause the tariffs as of 10 minutes ago. So my prediction has already came true.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. So there's alternative policy goals. This isn't the first time I asked. I looked into last time that we'd use tariffs to accomplish other policy goals. And my thoughts are that we're trying to do something that we did in the past, which is under Theodore Roosevelt and William McKinley and Bill McKinley, whatever. We would just say we're going to use tariffs against you.
Smoot-Hawley. Remember Smoot-Hawley? Remember that from economic history class?
Is that Tammany Hall type stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, that was the 30s. Yeah, that was after Roosevelt.
Anything I know about that area is just from Gangs of New York. Again, everything is through the perspective of Daniel Day-Lewis films. Yeah, what have you, buying votes, etc. But the alternative policy decisions, we use these as a cudgel essentially to accomplish other things. Which, to Trump's credit, there's fantastic branding around these tariffs, right? Most people that vote for him do not realize that it's pro-America, so to speak, but they don't realize that it's a tax, right? All of those fun, the Good Liars posts where people are a tariff is a tax, right? They're interviewing voters and they have no idea. A lot of people don't know. I mean, it's weird economic policy. The last person to use tariffs in this way was fucking Theodore Roosevelt. I mean, Ronald Reagan did it a little bit as well, but you get to accomplish other goals by saying, hey, Mexico, if you don't put 10,000 National Guardsmen on the border to, reduce the influx of immigrants and fentanyl, which is a huge real problem, then we're going to impose these tariffs on you guys. And that's what actually happened. He had a meeting with Claudia Sheinbaum, our president, and it was postponed for 30 days. I actually watched her announcement. She was really pissed off that the White House was saying that their government or our government or what have you is actually in league with the cartel. Of course, that would piss her off because that's saying that
her whole platform is to dismantle, is to combat the cartels.
Yeah, I mean, as it should be. Yeah. But how do you really know? The cartel is essentially a multi-billion-dollar organization, which I'm sure is funded by some very smart people. Anyway, that and I think that you would actually be interested in this last aspect of why we're using tariffs is to foster domestic production. In this case, one really good example is Tesla. In Mexico City, there is a Chinese car manufacturer called BYD, which is short for Build Your Dreams, which I'm sure you've heard of, which has some really cool cars and that are really, really inexpensive. You can get one for $11,000 brand new. And that competing against a Tesla vehicle would create a problem and a lot of competition for one of our domestic, one of our most valuable stocks or most valuable companies in the manufacturing space. Then again, they're trying to build, in Mexico as well. Elon was trying to build a manufacturing plant in Monterrey. So super complicated, but it would foster growth of domestic industries as opposed to foreign ones. So all that said,
but if we're dismantling the government, we're not going to have the infrastructure to support these factories. We're not going to have the unemployment insurance you need federal government to bolster industry. That's why America works, because we have a big federal government. That's why we're the most successful economy in history, because we invest in infrastructure to help people. We don't have a social safety net like a Scandinavian country because we put money in roads and schools and families and cities and education. Like, sure, let's cut the Department of Education so we can not educate people so they can't do jobs that are magically going to appear in factories that are magically going to get built. Like, these are all skilled labor jobs that we're talking about. Anyway, that's my rant. I just wanted to, I don't think we actually said the name of the article, which is, no, I just lost it. This dumbest trade war in history. So basically the Wall Street Journal editorial board came out together and said, like, this is dumb. Why are we doing this? And I liked this quote from the article just to kind of wrap up our thoughts here. The US wanted to hurt China's economy, but instead we gave them every incentive to invest in their own semiconductor industry, electric vehicles, and AI. We saw that last week with DeepSeek. Now they're producing their own high-tech goods instead of relying on us. Good job, everyone. So that's how the Wall Street Journal board feels about this.
Yeah, generally a very right-leaning pro-economic growth paper is going to be anti-tariff, as well as like any economist, unless you're trying to accomplish a very specific goal or specified exclusion of products like AI or 5G towers into the United States from China, which is not essentially we're in a cold economic war with. Cool. Speaking of AI, we have one more article real quick on AI on energy consumption. Yeah, I just want to say like uranium stocks, nuclear stocks are down over the release, and natural gas stocks are also down after the release of the DeepSeek item or realization that we might not need as much technical know-how and as many GPUs and energy to construct a powerful natural language or AI model. So just something that we're keeping an eye on here at BKFI is while it would be great for the cost to develop these technologies to come down significantly because it means it would democratize the access to them, it could potentially put a big dent in the valuations of our biggest U.S. company, NVIDIA, which is probably in the midst of a giant bubble right now, a la pets.com, but we shall see.
Yeah, John and I actually talked a lot about this last week. And yeah, the TLDR is basically when DeepSeek came out, it was like, oh, actually, we all thought that AI was going to be a huge user of power. It turns out the Chinese figured out how to do it for much less power use, which is mostly going to be good, except for the case you just mentioned, which is natural resources.
NVIDIA did bounce back from their dip in the recent past. So either we're in a collective delusion that we still need this amount of power and these chips to develop these great models, or who knows?
Or everyone just bought the dip and, oh, look at Charlie. Shane's adorable Australian Shepherd is being very cute.
He's sleeping on the bed behind me. Okay, sorry. Dear listener, heard my Charlie voice for the first time. I think we have time for one
Reddit
more
question? Yeah.
Yes. I think we have time for one more Reddit question. You want to handle this real estate investor that's looking for diversification? Got a 38-year-old that's got 3 kids and their wife doesn't work. This kind of like a $16 million in investment properties. Jesus Christ, this person is rich. $16 million in investment properties, $9 million in equity. They're cash flowing $800,000. Their question is, what advice do you have for me to allocate my $2 million in cash to be diversified? If stocks, do you have any further recommendations? Since my real estate income has a margin of my living expenses, should I feel more comfortable with some individual stocks like Microsoft or Amazon? How do I diversify considering I have so much invested in real estate? Do you think they should exclude further, like try to, in their portfolio, AJ, exclude real estate in some way? Like,
that's an interesting one. And this comes up a lot. Like, should you, like, when you buy real estate, you're obviously extremely undiversified because you're buying one piece of property in one block in one city, right? So if the fire comes through, your asset is gone. But you can invest in real estate through things called REITs. You can buy real estate sector stocks. So I am against excluding items from your portfolio that you're heavily invested in elsewhere. This comes up with our tech clients all the time, which is like 90% of my net worth is concentrated in NVIDIA stock or Google stock, which is a quote unquote tech stock. Should I exclude tech from my portfolio because I'm so over concentrated? I hate that. That. I don't want to do that. I don't want to take you out of growth tech stocks just because you have too much Google stock. No, I don't want that. So I do not think that this person should exclude real estate investing from their portfolio. I think that's part of a diversified portfolio. So yes, I think they should have some REITs. I think that's different than owning investment properties. That's different than owning little pieces of land. What was the other question? How do I be more diversified? I mean, honestly, at this level of net worth, I mean, yeah, I would say yes, use ETFs. Use ETFs to be diversified across the US stock market, the global stock market, emerging markets, real estate, bonds, all the above. However, at this level, with this, like this person doesn't need their net worth to grow that much. So if they want to mess around with some individual stocks, be my guest. Carve out 10% of that 2 million and play around with some Microsoft and Amazon. It sounds like this person was successful in their first investing hobby of real estate. So why shouldn't they continue to, get nerdy about this stuff and become a trader?
Right on. Yeah. I mean, they could definitely afford it. One thing that's missing from the question, though, is what their goals are, right? Like, we need to know what your intention are if we're going to invest. If you need a certain dollar amount, like you already have $20 million and you're 38, you got 30 years until your potential retirement. So I don't know what your goals are. But it does sound like you are a little bit concentrated in real estate, potentially in one market. But we would not want to exclude real estate in REITs, as you said, AJ, from all other markets around the entire world.
And he's got a pension. Look at that. He's got a $90,000 a year pension when he turns 65. So yeah, I mean, I love these kinds of questions. This is obviously a very smart person who's like, I've done a lot right. Like, what else am I missing? Like if that $2 million sat in cash, he'd probably be fine. But he's looking to optimize. So I say most of it goes into ETFs. He asked, should I invest it in ETFs like my IRA? So yes, I would invest like your IRA. Mess around with Microsoft, Amazon. Do not mess around with commodities. Too complicated. Don't invite complexity that you don't need. I'd love for you. You love real estate. So let's get some real estate ETFs in there.
Hopefully, one last thing, it would be to qualify as a professional real estate investor, hopefully get this income exposed to self-employment tax so that we can solo 401k $60,000+ every year, because most of this money that it looks like is not in tax advantaged accounts, which we could really get a big benefit from. So, and also looks like he's already paying full self-employment tax via a W-2 job. So that's a cool one.
Yeah. Loved it.
Cool. All right. Well, that's it. We got 4 more. We got a couple more questions we'll save for next week. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Liquidity Event. You can email us your financial problems at liquidityevent@brooklynfi.com. Thank you, AJ, for joining me today. Leave us a voicemail at memo.fm/liquidity event, and we'll play it on the air. Finally, Stans can leave us a review if you want to be weird about it.
Bye. See you next week.
Bye.